Hi, my name is John Ainsworth. I'm a husband, father, and small business owner. I enjoy things like traveling, NASCAR, and spending time with my family. In the 1980s, I was even a national champion skydiver and held 2 world records. Working for myself in 1991, I found myself paying 70% in mandated taxes and fees, while making only $30,000 a year. I realized something was wrong. So in 1995, I took 2 years off of work to research where our country went off track. As a result, I founded America's Remedy, an educational think tank to bring knowledge and truth to the American people. Because I really do believe that if we work together to help others learn about lawful government, how to reestablish it, and how to participate in it, we can get our country back.
Hi everyone, my name's Cliff Muncie. Welcome to the Remedy Webcast. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. We're ready to kick off the new year with our first episodes. And tonight we're going to be talking about our past episodes. We're calling this the Remedy Webcast Recap. If you haven't joined us before, this is a great opportunity to see what we've talked about in the past, the things that we've gone over, and kind of bring you up to speed to today. If you've watched us before, and you want to just review our past episodes, again, this is going to be a great episode for you. Tonight is pre-recorded. We won't be taking any questions tonight. However, next week, we'd like to invite you to join us. January 17th, I'll be joining John Ainsworth here live on the air, and we'll be taking your questions. Let's rewind back to our past episodes, starting in September with our episode entitled Obamacare. We looked at Judge Roberts' ruling for Obamacare. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it constitutional? I think you'll be interested to find out what we discovered. There's a lot of debate going on. This health care law that was just ruled on has really got a lot of people yelling at each other. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on here?
Well, yeah, the health care bill. We got a lot of people it's like they're going crazy that this is unconstitutional and it doesn't apply to us, and Judge Roberts made this terrible ruling, and I'm here to say that I think Judge Roberts actually made the proper ruling of what the status of these people are that is affected. But the problem is, and this is what we talk about of America's Remedy all the time, is the people don't know what their status is. They don't know who they are. And so, it's a good ruling because the ruling is that Congress has the power to pass these laws over these people. And I love what Justice Roberts said. And this actually comes out of his ruling. I got it written right here. It says, "It is not our job to protect the people from the consequences of their political choices." And so what people get from this insinuation is, well, your political choice is who you vote. You don't have to vote these people in. Or some people say your political choice is, well, then we just need to get the Republicans back in or the Democrats back in. And we're here at America's Remedy say that, hey, your political choice is maybe it's what political body do you want to participate in.
So it's completely outside of the realm of Republicans and Democrats or even Libertarians in any of that voting circle.
Absolutely. Is who does the health care bill apply to? It applies to the United States citizens that reside in the states. And that's the terminology we've come to know. And most Americans say, well, I'm proud to be a United States citizen. But I'm not sure everyone knows where a United States citizenship came from. How did it get put in this place? At the founding of this country, how much authority did the federal government have over the citizens of the individual states? Could they have passed a health care bill in 1820? Could Washington have done that over all the people? Because the Constitution, in most people's mind, in that perspective, hasn't really changed. And we know for a fact that they didn't have that authority. Well, then what happened?
Now, our next episode delved even deeper into this question of what happened, specifically what happened to state rights. Take a look at this excerpt in this episode where we discuss some of the effects of the 14th Amendment, of course, coerced by Reconstruction, and how it affects state rights today. Do we have state rights, and what happened to them?
Heretofore, a man was made a citizen of the United States because he was a citizen of one of the states. Now we propose to reverse that and make him a citizen of any state where he chooses to reside by defining in advance his national citizenship. And our amendment declares that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. This amendment will prove a great beneficence to this generation and to all who shall succeed us in the rights of American citizenship. And we ask the people of the revolted states to consent to this condition as an antecedent step to their readmission to Congress with senators and representatives. In other words, this is where they're saying that, and he's saying this before it's passed. This is 1866, before Reconstruction. He says, we're saying you need to accept total subjugation to Washington before you're going to be readmitted to Congress. Okay. And it's like, wait a second. Where does Congress get the authority to do that? He's being very clear. In 1866, when the amendment was proposed in June, this speech is given in August, so just a couple months later, we see the intent right here that it's about nationalizing citizenship and changing the citizenship from state citizenship to citizens of the United States. And he's saying it's a reversal of what we had, which I would say it's the overthrow of the foundation of this country. It's the overthrow of what the founders put into place. Yeah. It's the overthrow of a union, the creation of a nation, which is not authorized.
Now again, check out that episode in our archives, but if you keep watching that video, you'll see that we ultimately discovered that state rights are gone. They've been obliterated by the Reconstruction Acts and the 14th Amendment. Regardless of what people say today, people are trying to assert or rather request back their 10th Amendment rights. And if you take a look back in history, back at that time period specifically with Reconstruction, you'll see that state rights were obliterated and we no longer have them. That's a very good episode to take a look at. Now in October, we sort of switched gears. We had an episode entitled Addictions, specifically addictions to the current modern day political process. The presidential debates were hot in the news and we took to the streets to see what people thought of their choices. Check it out, Man on the Street. Okay, we're here in Winston-Salem at Haynes Mall. You can see Haynes Mall to your right there, and Olive Garden directly behind us. And we're going to be filming and getting a few people's opinions on the upcoming elections and the presidential debates. Watch and see what happens. First of all, did you watch the presidential debates?
No.
Didn't watch them?
No.
Why not?
I thought they were boring.
Did you guys watch the presidential debates?
Yeah, I caught part of it, but not much.
I caught about an hour and a half of it.
Did you watch the presidential debates?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I was working, plus I just figured that it was not going to be worthwhile listening to.
Yes, I did.
Watched it for the most part, yeah.
Did you watch the presidential debates?
Yeah.
Did you watch the presidential debates?
I did.
Okay. Who do you believe won, or who won in your opinion?
Romney. No contest.
Why do you think?
He was up for the thing. He really, first of all, I think he's good on economics. I think Obama is missing it there. Doesn't really understand the whole economic thing very well. So I think Romney's much better in that field.
Have you heard anything from anybody else about who won, or have you heard any rambling?
They said that Romney won the debate, that Obama didn't act like he knew where he was at.
Who won in your opinion out of maybe what you saw or what you've heard from friends?
I'm really not even sure.
From what I've seen of it, I would probably say Romney.
I feel like Romney definitely won.
Why do you think Romney won?
I feel like Obama just kind of stammered and tried to he kind of said the same thing over and over again about Romney, like, and his tax plan and everything, and Romney just went back and said that wasn't his plan and just executed the debate well.
Who won in your opinion?
Obama, of course.
Romney.
Why do you think Romney won?
Or he's just a lot quicker and smarter on his answers.
Romney.
Why do you think Romney won?
Well, I'm for him anyway.
Mind if I ask who you're rooting for personally?
Well, I am rooting for Romney.
Romney, because I figure he's the least of the worst.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Obama, actually.
Why is that?
Because I feel like he would be better for the middle class.
Obama.
Why is that?
Because he's all about the middle class and, the health and education and stuff like that, so,
Romney.
All right, and why is that?
Because I think the Obama thing has failed badly.
Who are you rooting for?
Romney,
Okay, why is that?
because I think we need a change.
Are you enthusiastic about the elections?
No,
Why not?
I don't think we got much to choose from, really.
No, not particularly enthusiastic, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good word to describe it.
Not really.
To be honest, I really don't care who wins because my life is still going to be the same. I mean, going to work, doing whatever, you know.
Are you enthusiastic about the elections?
Yes,
Why is that?
because I'm eager to vote and move it to a different place.
Are you enthusiastic about this year's elections?
This could go either way.
Do you trust politicians?
No,
Why not?
do you?
No.
Kind of, sort of,
Really?
halfway. Yeah, I guess.
Do you trust politicians?
Not greatly.
Why is that?
It's all surface, and so I don't really trust everything I hear.
I think can all of them be a little crooked.
Do you trust politicians?
Not much. You go for the worst of two evils.
Okay, well, I've heard that before, so that's interesting.
I know there's dirty politics, and I know that there's a lot of backdealing in some parts, but I would like to think for some I can entrust, and there have been some that I do trust.
Do you believe that America is in a good place right now or a not so good place?
Not so good.
I mean, the economy in the United States and healthcare is just such in a rut right now. I mean, it's one of these things where it has to be fixed. There's so many people that have so many opinions on how it should be fixed and how to get it fixed. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's tough work.
Are you happy with the direction of the country right now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, how bad is it going to get?
Do you feel that voting is effective?
Yes.
Morally, economically, has either party proven themselves as far as being able to change the direction of the country?
No, not really.
Voting has contributed to us in a good way or maybe not so much over the course of history?
I think it's a good idea, but I feel like people should do more research before they vote.
Some would say that voting has led us to where we are today. Do you believe that?
Yes, that's true. But you've got both sides. You got, and they thought they were picking the right person, and I had hopes that they had done right, even though I didn't vote for them. I had high hopes, but the hopes went crashing.
Is voting the only option that we have?
No.
Do you know of some other things that we can do besides voting?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like what?
I attended a National Youth Leaders Conference, and it was all based on the politics. It was in Washington, D.C. We got to meet senators, we got to meet state representatives. But if you don't have opportunities like that, I would definitely say write in letters to senators and state representatives.
Do you think there's other ways that Americans can get involved outside of both voting and participating in the political parties that are present?
Hardly. Given the way the country's set up, I think everybody's got to get out and vote.
Are there other solutions that you know of that could benefit us? It's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
Are there other solutions that we could maybe do as a people?
I feel like there are, but I just don't know what.
You know other ways other than voting and being involved in a political party that Americans can get involved to change things?
No.
Not really. Just try to get everybody out there to vote. Half the people don't vote anyway.
You think there are other ways that we can affect change?
Yeah, but I can't say it on out loud.
Okay. Is the Constitution important to you?
Yes, it is. It gives me a feeling that I have protection in my rights.
The Constitution important to you guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a reason that we've had it for so many years. There's a reason it's been upheld for so many years.
Is the Constitution important to you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Well, I think that gives us everything we need is right there. We just don't get carried away and start adding on and doing things that we don't need to do. We don't need government in everybody's life quite so stringently as we've got it now.
Is the Constitution important to you?
Yes, it is.
Is the Constitution important to you?
Yes, very much.
If a law is unconstitutional, if you think a law is unconstitutional, are you required to obey it?
Yeah, we have got to obey the laws.
If a law is unconstitutional, should we obey it?
No, I'd say no, it's not constitutional.
Aside from the Man on the Street video, we also did an online survey. From our survey results, we really found that most of the people that we spoke to participated in the election process, and the Constitution was important to them. Some were enthusiastic about elections, some were not. But overall, most folks didn't really think that the elections would really change anything. So they were participating in it, but they didn't think it would really change anything. So the results that we got in that particular episode were very interesting. Check it out in our archives, Addictions. Now, on the eve of elections, we had an episode called Lesser of Two Evils. You, of course, hear this all the time. You've got so many presidential candidates up there, and it's kind of dwindled down. Your choices start to be limited after a while. You're forced to vote for the lesser of two evils. And so we kind of went after this concept from a Christian standpoint. We talked about rationalizing versus justifying this course of action, standing for the truth and having faith. We also reviewed some Bible characters who have stood up and left the rest to God regardless of the incredible odds that were against them. You know, bringing this back full circle, Jill, you mentioned a little while ago that they fear Obama more than God, and I think that really gets at the root of this, is that they're not voting for Romney necessarily, and we discussed this the other day. They're not voting for Romney because they think that he has this same worldview, this moral Christian standard that everybody is espousing necessarily. They're just trying to get Obama out of office, and that they fear Obama more than they fear God.
Well, they do, and I think, and so many of them too, want to get back under our constitutional foundation that our founding fathers set up. And most of these folks that I'm talking to realize that we were founded on biblical principles. They're forgetting that in order to get back under this, our founding fathers and our Constitution, that it is for a religious people based on God's laws. And you can't be voting for people that support things that go against what God tells you. Because then you're, to John's point, you're outside of that umbrella. You're going outside of liberty under God, and you're going regardless of God. But they don't see that because they don't see how this other worldview, this satanic worldview, I mean, Satan is the master of deception. We're told that biblically.
If people fear Obama so much and the power that he has, wouldn't it be better to remove the power from that office, the unconstitutional power that office holds?
Right.
Instead of flipping out presidents every 4 years and having the power of the 14th Amendment coerced by Reconstruction, which makes us national citizens, whether it be better to remove that rather than just putting a Band-Aid over it every 4 years, because the Band-Aid ain't working, obviously. And the voting, that pattern of voting, like we said, generation after generation after generation of voting, has led us to where we are today. It hasn't helped. So something else needs to be done other than voting for the lesser of two evils.
And again, obviously what we believe is knowledge and wisdom, and then standing on your belief system, not being manipulated off of it by, well, a lot more people are going this way, a lot more people are doing this, there's no chance of success. You know, was David told there's no chance of success when he's going against Goliath? I'm sure. How many people were sitting there when Gideon's got his 300? There's no chance of success here. You know, we've got to start living by our foundation of what we believe and having that conviction. And that's what we look at our founders about, is they didn't have a conviction that they were going to win. They had a conviction of their beliefs were worth fighting for. Because you had this colony going against the most mighty army on the planet, the most mighty military on the planet. I mean, this is a military that would fight the French, the Napoleons and people like this. But you got some colonists going against it. What were their odds of victory? But you know what? They believed, they had a moral view, they had a Christian foundation, a moral view upon which they said we have a right to go in this direction, and they did. I'm a firm believer that we have a right, we have a moral duty, and an obligation to get back to our foundation.
It's very challenging, I think, as a Christian to stand up for what's right in the face of adversity, in the face of all your friends and sometimes often your family who are kind of, really wanting to more go along with the crowd. And so, again, check out that episode in our webcast. It's entitled Lesser of Two Evils. I'd like to again welcome you to our Remedy Webcast recap, where we're going over some of our past episodes. You were just watching an excerpt from our October 25th episode entitled Lesser of Two Evils. Next in our recap lineup, we had a very special episode called CounterRevolution. We did a lot of work for this episode, and it's got a interesting short 10-minute video entitled CounterRevolution. We've since then posted this video on our YouTube channel, and it's gotten thousands of views. It's had a very warm welcome from people, and it covers where America went off track historically. It covers a plan for a counter-revolution that will restore our states, and also covers what America would look like on the other side of this plan. Take a look.
Choices, choices, choices. Which president will we put behind this desk? Or does it really matter? Could there be another choice? This year and in past elections, there's one thing that remains overlooked by the American people. The 14th Amendment, put in place by the Reconstruction Acts. Regardless of who's sitting behind the desk, be it Romney, Obama, a write-in like Ron Paul, Democrats, or Republicans, one thing still remains the same. This office still holds the power provided by the 14th Amendment. So, why is this amendment so important? Most people believe in U.S. citizenship. In fact, most people are proud to be called U.S. citizens. Many people today believe that the federal government is over the state governments and that the federal government is the higher authority. However, if we take a trip back through time to the Reconstruction Acts, about 2 years after the Civil War, we'll discover that it was the other way around. The federal government was created by the states, and the states maintained ultimate sovereign authority. The people living in each state were called state citizens, and their citizenship of their state was predominant. Also, the federal government had no authority over the citizens of each state. Before Reconstruction, the United States was a union of many individual sovereign states. Each state had total authority within its borders based upon the choices of the citizens. America thrived and liberty prevailed. With Reconstruction and the 14th Amendment, we became a nation of one. State sovereignty and state rights were eliminated. Citizenship was nationalized and the federal government gained control over the states and the citizens. Federalist Paper number 39 said, "A national government involves not only an authority over the individual citizens, but an indefinite supremacy over all persons and things." In other words, Congress now has indefinite supremacy over all persons and things. James G. Blaine, in 20 Years of Congress, said that the 14th Amendment distinctly reversed the origin and character of American citizenship, and that the consequences that flowed from this radical change in the basis of citizenship were numerous and weighty. I would tend to agree with Mr. Blaine. Back to our floating heads and the president's desk. No matter how many times we vote, or even if we turn out in huge numbers, the power of the 14th Amendment stands firm, authorizing Congress to make decisions for all states on things like abortion, gay rights, no prayer in schools, health care, drug laws, and more, forcing these decisions on us, the subjugated U.S. citizens. So instead of focusing on voting, let's look at the cause and effect, Reconstruction and the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment nationalized citizenship, making us citizens of Congress as opposed to a citizen of a sovereign state. Remember the quote, indefinite supremacy? Under this U.S. citizenship status, Congress has complete control. The 14th Amendment is the only congressionally coerced amendment in the history of our country. In fact, through the Reconstruction Acts, Congress made the passage of the 14th Amendment a requirement for states in order to seat representatives. The Reconstruction Acts were passed 2 years after the Civil War, and a year after peace was declared, over President Johnson's veto. And the acts opposed the original object of the war. This legislation annulled pre-existing states in the South and in the North, peopling them over again with U.S. citizens having drastically limited rights. Remember Blaine's statement? He said the consequences that flowed from this radical change in the basis of citizenship were numerous and weighty. And they were. The Reconstruction Acts were a blatant violation of the Constitution on a number of different levels. And to this very day, these violations have never been adjudicated, meaning that American courts have never ruled on the constitutionality of this legislation. So what do we do with this information? Let's shift our focus from these guys to this guy, the people, specifically you. You know your original state was annulled. You're no longer a state citizen as the founders set it up. You're now a U.S. citizen. Your current state is a federal satellite with no sovereignty and no state rights. Ultimately, in the matter of lawmaking and deciding how your government is run, Congress calls the shots, and your liberty and freedom are restrained. And all of these things are a result of the unconstitutional Reconstruction Acts. And this was committed by people with oaths to the Constitution. Now, the United States Supreme Court has defined an unconstitutional act. They say an unconstitutional act is not a law, and it creates no office. This is very important. We see from this that not only are we not required to obey unconstitutional laws, but legally speaking, laws which are unconstitutional are actually not laws to begin with. Keep this in mind as we now attempt to come up with a solution to these issues beyond the voting booth.
Now, since our time here is limited, we've only shown about half of that CounterRevolution video. The full video is about 10 minutes long. If you'll take a look at our America's Remedy website, americasremedy.com, you can see a link to CounterRevolution right there on the homepage. This CounterRevolution actually talks about reestablishing your state, but doesn't get into the nitty-gritty details of it. It's sort of an overview video to get you started. So we did a video, Reestablish Your State. And this covered several things. It covered the effects of Reconstruction specific to each state, our legal basis for reestablishment. We talked about historical examples versus modern implementation. We talked about what a declaration of reestablishment looks like and how we use it. And we also talked about an affidavit of citizenship, what that looks like and how it affects your status and your rights, exactly what filling that in as an individual requires and what that does. Now, after we reviewed the nuts and bolts of reestablishing your state and how that's done, we extended an invitation for an Organizing Our States conference call. We extended this invitation and it's still open. If you would like to join up with us on that conference call, we have an email here that you can use, jill@americasremedy.com. And I'd like to say after this particular webcast, we got some pretty good results. We got at least 6 states on our first call, and it's progressed a little bit more since then, and we'll kind of follow up with that when John's back on the air and he can kind of tell us how that's going. But again, the invitation stands if you'd like to if you're interested in reestablishing your state, and you've seen some of our past webcasts, you've seen CounterRevolution, you're interested in that, send an email to jill@americasremedy.com and she'll send you an invitation and tell you how to get on that conference call. Now, our next webcast was called Debunking Patriot Myths. And this actually ended up being a 2-parter. We did this webcast because often in order to get to the truth, we find that people are latching on to myths or falsehoods. And so we really have to get beyond this. So we wanted to go ahead and tackle this. We set out to debunk several Patriot myths. We ended up covering about 7. There may be a few more in there, but we ended up covering about 7 different myths. I'd like to go ahead and show you an excerpt from our second myth that we covered. The United States is not a country, it's a corporation.
And this one's out there is tenacious, that the United States is not a country, it's a corporation. And it's everywhere. And they talk about this act of 1871.
I hear this a lot, this one.
And it's all over, and all you got to do is plug it into the internet. I'm going to throw a couple of them up here, some of the internet research out there. Here's one, and it basically says, 1871, February 21st, Congress passes an act to provide a government for the District of Columbia, also known as the Act of 1871. And the commentary says this: with no constitutional authority to do so, Congress creates a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, a 10 square mile parcel of land. So they're saying that they created this government. Now, what do they say this government did? It says, and they go on with commentary, the United States isn't a country, it's a corporation. In preparation for stealing America, the puppets of Britain's banking cabal had already created a second government, a shadow government designed to manage what the common herd believed was democracy, but what really was an incorporated United States. And so they're talking about this Act of 1871. Here's another one. You got Godlike Productions. They put it out there. They got other issues. In 1871, the United States Constitution was suspended in favor of a Vatican corporation. So they're talking about this Act of 1871, created this Vatican corporation. Here's another one. Before it's news, the United States isn't a country. So it's all over. That's the Vatican. It's the Crown. And you can go through these things. But let's just go to, they say that Congress passes legislation over the district without any authority whatsoever. Well, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution says, and this is what Congress has the power to do. Congress it can to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district. They're given the authority to pass exclusive legislation over this 10 square mile. So that debunks the opening sentence of virtually every one of these arguments. They pass this legislation over the district with no authority whatsoever. They're actually given
authority right there.
They're given authority. So that's debunked right there. Number two is that every constitution is a corporation. I mean, what is a corporation? A corporation is a piece of paper. Okay, it's you and I have an idea that we want to become a corporate body of some sort, and we want to go by certain rules, kind of like can be a little contract here, and we're the corporate body. But what can the paper do? You know, can a paper be sued? Can a paper pay taxes? Can a paper build a Walmart? Can the corporate papers of Walmart build a Walmart? Well, no, they're papers. They sit on a shelf. What makes a corporation alive is the people that are parties to it. And so I'm just going to read out of Bouvier's corporation. It says, corporation, and this is 1856. It's an aggregate corporation is an ideal body created by law, composed of individuals united under a common name, the members of which succeed each other, so that the body continues the same, notwithstanding the changes of the individuals. Of course, we elect our individuals into the corporate bodies of government, but the state of North Carolina, the United States government, continues on, whether George Washington is president or not. You know, it's not based on who's there. It's the officers that fill in the corporation.
Okay.
It says that, and which for certain purposes is considered as a natural person. A corporation is a natural person. You can tax it. You can fine it. You can, sue it. Okay.
So it gives it certain aspects that kind of make it like a person.
Right. And this is another concept people have is that a corporation is a human being. Well, it's not. It's given these things. It's been for hundreds of years. Given the corporation is given the status as a natural person, so that it can be sued, so that it can be
certain
taxed.
Things apply to it.
Because I cannot get money from a piece of paper, corporate paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you haven't seen Patriot Myths Part 1 and 2, I highly recommend checking that out. You can check out the archive right below this video. And if you've got any questions on these, bring them up during one of our live episodes. We'd love to answer your questions. Our next episode was called Interview with a State Citizen. We brought in Mandy Rose, an automotive student, a wife, a mother of two, expecting a third, and a state citizen. Mandy got on the air with us to talk about her court battles and the work she's trying to do to bring back lawful government. And here's a short clip where we had our interview with Mandy. Check it out. Speaking of the various issues, I mean, that's how we get the argument of, was your state created lawfully into the courtrooms. We've got to take up on a personal battle. And you've taken up several personal battles. Can you kind of go down the line and tell me what things that you've taken on, I guess, personally? You mentioned, I think, license or something, what are the different issues?
The first issue I took on was driving or operating a motor vehicle without the properly fastened seatbelt around me as a driver, or operator rather, and that carries with it a $25.50 fine plus court cost. And then the first case was in Forsyth County. It was thrown out. Then I got a subsequent case in Wilkes County in 2010, and that is still being adjudicated at this point. And then we've got a operating with no license, and that was in Forsyth County, and that's been remanded. I'm not really sure where that one's at right now. And then we've got one that's in, two that are in Wilkes that are both seatbelt tickets.
How do you see this coming out on the other side? I mean, the ultimate goal of what you're doing.
The ultimate goal of what I'm doing is trying to not only wake up the populace to, hey, this is not the norm, this is not always okay, you have the right to stand up to this and call injustice to its face, but also to preserve the liberty that our founders started in this country for my children, because I am the posterity that they spoke of, and so are my children, and I want the country to be a better place for them.
How has this been with your family? I mean, this obviously takes a lot of time and toll, I would imagine, to go into court, and I know I've sat through some of these cases, and they can go on for hours and hours and hours and hours, so obviously it's worth it to you, first of all.
It is.
Is it, I mean, it's got to be a strain.
It's a strain. It's a strain on my relationship with my husband. He usually has to take off work to take care of either the kids or to take me wherever I'm going, to be there for support. So it's a financial toll. It's also, time, because I'm stressing out over making sure that I have all my paperwork in on time and it's stamped and dated and signed and everything else, and that trying to strategize what the state is going to come up with as an argument this time, or how they're going to try to get around it, or what the next procedure is. So yeah, it's pretty stressful, and it does take its toll, but ultimately it's worth it.
And compare the toll that we've got to put against this. I mean, even though, what you're doing is absolutely commendable, because, there's so few people that are willing to even take this much of a stand. But look what our founders did. They were putting their lives on the line. And we're just looking for Americans to stand up and ask the question. Take it into court, make your legal position. I'm a citizen of a lawful state. Take it into court and ask the questions. Where did your state come from? Is it lawfully created? And that's all right. We're not asking for blood. It's just a matter of ask it. And what kind of answers are we getting? But what and they can't answer it. That's why, we know what it takes to get this country back. We just need people willing to stand up. And Mandy's just done a dynamite job at standing up for what's going on out there.
Definitely giving them several chances to answer properly. They'll say it that way.
There was one piece of advice that you could give folks to change the direction of the country. What would that be?
Do something. Do something. Take action. Make sure that it matters, because when you die, it's nothing that you do is going to matter unless you are taking positive steps in the right direction.
Great. That's a great comment, because we need to be looking at our country of what are we leaving our children. What are we saying? I want to be on cruise control and just live a happy life. I'll let my children take care of it. That's not a responsible adult. We need to take care of our country now with what we got going on.
We got to fix it.
Got to fix it.
Does that affect your decisions? As what your kids are going to be living with?
Absolutely. It affects my daily decisions. It's the reason that I choose the educational route for my children that I do. It's the reason that I choose the financial route. It's everything that I am trying to do is set up around the future for my children, because they are the ones that are going to inherit it, and they're the ones that are the most important.
Well, folks, this wraps up our recap, and thank you for joining us on this recap episode. And if you'd like to see more of Mandy, we'll actually be bringing her in on our next episode, our next live webcast, January 17th. So join us January 17th at 7 p.m. and that episode will be called What's Your Status? We'll be talking about state citizen, going a little bit more in depth on state citizenship. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Hi everyone, and let's see, I'll start over. Today we're going to be talking about, today will be, Hi everyone, my name's Cliff Muncie. Welcome to the Remedy Webcast. I hope everybody, I don't need to yammer on so much, I just need to say my point and get on with it. Okay, see a link right there for CounterRevolution, where you can watch the video right there I'm running out of stuff. Now I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on the Remedy Web. Now at the tail end of our Reestablish Your State web Now, after the nuts and bolts of this webcast, we extended an invitation for organizing our states. Now, after the nuts and now after the nuts